Hello, and thank you for joining Direct Marketing News for today's webcast, The House That Data Built, Use Digital Intelligence to Drive Individualization, brought to you by BlueConic. I'm Elise Dupre, Associate Editor of Direct Marketing News, and I'll be your moderator today. Do you struggle with identifying individuals who engage with your brand across digital touchpoints and thus fail to personalize their experience in a way that drives them to convert? You're not alone. In this webinar, we'll learn how marketers use digital intelligence to drive individualization and thus better marketing outcomes. Of course, this level of personalization requires rationalizing and unifying disparate data, as well as optimizing interactions continuously. So we'll also discuss what marketers need to do to build a technology stack that uses digital intelligence to drive individualization. With that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. We have Cory Munchbach, Director of Product Marketing for BlueConic, and James McCormick, Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. But before I turn it over to Cory and James, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. If you're on Twitter and would like to comment, please use the hashtag DMNWebcast. Also, there will be a Q&A at the end, so make sure to stay tuned. And if you have any technical issues, please use the question box and we'll assist you as quickly as possible. Finally, slides will be made available after the presentation. So with that, Cory, I think I've done enough talking, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction. Welcome to everyone on the phone. We're excited to get started on today's webinar, during which we're going to be talking about digital intelligence and individualization. And I'm thrilled that you joined us today. We're going to be joined, as Elise said, by Forrester's Principal Analyst and a good friend of mine, James McCormick. My name is Cory Munchbach. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here. Also, we're going to have someone monitoring Twitter live on our end too. So if you have any additional comments or questions, you can tweet them to @BlueConic throughout the webinar with the same hashtag that Elise mentioned. So the agenda for today has 3 key parts, and there's some time for Q&A at the end. I'm just going to spend a few minutes at the beginning talking about individualization, what it is, and how it's an essential discipline for marketers to master. Then James is going to be taking us through the majority of today's scheduled program, starting with the need to compete with continuous optimization, and then the way in which digital intelligence supports that effort. Then we'll wrap up with some questions, and with that, we will just dive in. In 2014, another of James's Forrester colleagues suggested that individualization can be defined as experiences that use customer data to structure interactions, functionality, and content around the needs of individual users. This was in reference particularly for customer experience designers, but it applies in large part to marketers today too. Customer experience as a business priority has exploded over the last 5 or so years, and it's really no wonder why. Brands and analyst firms have demonstrated time and again the correlation between superior customer experience and higher revenue growth. But for marketers, this has placed often uncomfortable scrutiny on the not especially customer-first practices that constituted traditional marketing. Batch and blast, one-size-fits-all outbound messaging across any and all places a customer might be. The ambition for the last couple of years has been around personalization, this idea of right message, right place, right time. But that's still a very inside-out mentality that approaches an interaction from the marketer's point of view and is limited to a message rather than the whole experience, which is where individualization comes in. Now, I think about this as personalization being to traditional marketing tactics as individualization is to creating unique experiences. Now, up to this point, we've seen that efforts at personalization try and regain that sort of intimate touch, but they're really limited to content recommendations or offers because they're easiest to deploy at scale and require a limited set of inputs to be shown. On the other hand, individualization is a complete tailoring of the experience in response to an individual's implicit and explicit intent. To achieve this vision, you need to be able to engage in that relevant way continuously, optimizing to the individual and their context. The challenge is that marketers are having a very difficult time getting their data houses in order to actually do this. So we see that while 71% of marketers report having at least a strong or average capability at capturing data at the web, only 31% of them say that they're able to actually get that data distributed out to other systems, and a really quite meager percentage of only 16% say that they're actually able to bring other data in and sort of unify it all in one place. So here you have this ambition of individualization, but major challenges around how to manage the data, how to leverage it in a way that's actually useful to achieve it. So that brings me, of course, to introducing our guest, James, who is the leading expert in this type of thing around digital intelligence, continuous optimization. So I will hand it over to the leading authority on that. Take it away, James.
Thank you very much, Cory, and thank you so much to BlueConic and Direct Marketing News for giving me an opportunity to talk about something that I think about quite often and I'm really kind of passionate about, which is, how do we use our intelligence that we have, particularly around the digital framework, to really better engage with our customers. And so, when they asked me to talk about continuous optimization, I kind of jumped at that opportunity. And so, as Cory mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about how we continually optimize with our digital intelligence, kind of bringing the two together. So without further ado, just want to kind of postulate out there where, make a statement, which is we need to be able to compete today in today's kind of environment by delighting our customers with every moment of engagement. So we need moments of engagement, and delighting our customers are the tools for competition, if you really think about it. And so that kind of brings us to the subject of today, which is continuous optimization. So let's take a step back quickly and talk about this character in the middle, King Henry VIII, actually played by Tyra Travis, a very talented actress who plays 7 different characters of King Henry and his 6 wives. But anyway, why are we talking about King Henry VIII? Well, King Henry was an interesting character. No matter what the relationship he had with his wives, whether he'd been married for a while or not, he would quite happily kind of chop off the heads, kind of divorce them, change his religion, etc., to kind of move on to the next wife, and which was kind of a bit harsh, if you might think. But it kind of got me thinking that King Henry VIII is very much like the customers that we have today. They are very fickle. Should they not wish to engage with us, they can very kind of easily move on to our competition and kind of engage with them, no matter what the relationship they have with us, whether it is right at the discovery phase and where they are starting to kind of date us and kind of engage with our brands, through to the, where they're married to us, where they actually have products and services. They can quite easily kind of move on. So it got me thinking, what is actually kind of driving this? Why is the customer today so so empowered? And really, it's digital that's really empowered them, if you really think about it, because it's digital that enables them to not only discover us, explore our brands, ultimately kind of purchase products and services, engage in those products and services with us. The digital has enabled them to do that with us, and as brands, that's a huge opportunity. But the fact is that our competition, has that opportunity as well around digital. And customers are on the pound seat, right? So they can, again, no matter where they are in our in their customer life cycle with us, can move on and and just kind of engage with as many people many brands as they want. And digital is that. And so we shouldn't really just be thinking about the digital now. The websites and the mobile apps and the mobile kind of websites and the social apps of today, because really they are just the kind of transient or the nascent state of digital. Digital has a long way to go in the way that we're engaging with brands. So, for instance, we know at Forrester, from Forrester research that at least 36% of firms that we've surveyed recently are adopted a sensor-based technology within their products and services. So, for instance, I don't need to kind of preach to anybody about kind of Fitbit, around the way that they are using customer understanding to provide a service and the product itself, the value of the product itself. And with the efforts of Volvo and Mercedes-Benz and their connected car are using the behaviors and the understanding of the way that we interact with their products, i.e. the car, to provide greater and better service and products. And then you've got the likes of Nike as well, which have been investing in these kind of technologies for a while. So digital is really just started, right? And this is kind of where it's going. And so that this empowered customer is only going to get more powerful, and it's only going to be more kind of transient and flippant in the way that they kind of deal with us as kind of brands. So what do? Do we all just go home? No, we don't. We kind of sit back and we think about it. What we need to do is have a strategy whereby we need to learn from each moment that we engage with our customers to evolve the next. And why do we have this opportunity for a strategy? Well, if you think about it, digital has given us more data points on our customers than we ever did have before, so a better understanding of our customers. So we need to use that understanding to provide competition-beating moments of engagement. And so we need this, and we need to kind of continually evolve our understanding and continually involve those moments of engagement. And so that brings us to the kind of topic of today, which is this kind of continuous optimization topic, which is, what are we, first of all, continuously optimizing? Well, we're continuously optimizing those, the personalization of that engagement, that individualization, anything to do with the experience we are using to continually optimize and evolve using a continually optimizing and evolving customer understanding. Kind of what do I mean? Well, if you take the three kind of circles at the bottom there, we have customer interaction that in the digital realm, mostly or a lot of the times we've instrumented for collecting information about our customers, from a behavioral perspective, from a contextual perspective. Where are they? Mobile's been great about that. What is their, what's the temperature where they are at the moment? What's the weather, etc. And we're using that to analyze and learn and kind of bring in all those pieces of data together to ultimately evolve the treatment, evolve that interaction point so that the next time that they interact with us, they can have a more evolved experience. So that's kind of what we mean. And that evolved interaction really evolves the overall customer experience that they have with us and during their whole lifetime with the brand. So we're going from the kind of left-hand side where we just kind of treat it as ordinary customers to the right-hand side to that happy customer who feels that they are treated correctly and and we are ultimately continually evolving his or her experience. And so that's what continuous optimization seeks to do and evolve, is ultimately through optimized engagement to optimize the overall customer experience with us. And so at Forrester, we like our definitions. So, what I'll do today is just define what we mean by continuous optimization. Well, first of all, it's a strategy. It's an analytics-driven strategy that continually, leverages every opportunity that we have to evolve our customer understanding, and to use that evolved understanding to optimize each digital engagement and to continually optimize that. So that's what continuous optimization is, and it is a strategic level initiative that requires a framework in which to understand and measure ourselves against continuous optimization. So it kind of got me thinking, how do we measure ourselves? How do we know how continually optimized we are as an organization? Well, there's 4 dimensions to think about continuous optimization. The first dimension is, what types of optimization techniques do we have that we leverage to optimize the customer engagement? And the first bit is segmentation. And not just your kind of standard segmentation, but with data, machine learning, and data analytics techniques to really be able to deep dive and understand our customers in ways that we've never understood with them before. And there's some great kind of machine learning techniques and automation techniques to really understand and to understand to drift that understanding, to drift our segments as they change with time, with seasonality, etc. So we need to look at the when we're evaluating this first dimension, look at the ways that we understand and the sophistication around that our customers through segmentation and data-driven segmentation. Secondly, there's the, your traditional kind of test and learn techniques such as A/B testing and the more sophisticated multivariate testing techniques that we have to, learn and to match up the optimal, experiences to the optimal segments and to continually learn about that as it kind of evolves, because today's match might not be tomorrow's match, etc. And of course, we've got the rules-based targeting, which today are mostly simplistic. Hey, I come in from the UK to a .com web, a landing page, and it has UK English or something, and vice versa. So that's those, and they're becoming more sophisticated through kind of cookies and other means of kind of key identification to actually understand what customers were doing beforehand, so we can have better kind of rules. And then, of course, our e-commerce friends amongst us will recognize the recommendations capabilities that we have, where you looking at existing customers, previous purchases, and interactions with us to then recommend kind of future purchases, primarily at the lower part of that funnel. And today, where I'm really excited is around the algorithmic-based targeting techniques that we have that kind of combine almost a lot of the other components of test, learn, and apply in a kind of a big data machine learning capability that not only learns about the which experiences best meet our customer, but also learns about the way that we understand our customers and drifts that over time. And there's some really exciting things there. So that's the first real kind of dimension in which we should be thinking about our continuous optimization strategy, should we so wish to pursue one. The second dimension is, thinking about what channels we are applying our continuous optimization, any optimization techniques to. Of course, for me, I originated, the thinking around digital intelligence and continuous optimization around the website. But, applying it to email, of course, has been around with us for a while. And then there's mobile apps, etc. And then there's all the other kind of channels, interactive or otherwise, that we have for interacting with our customers. And when we're assessing our optimization and continuous optimization strategy, we need to be thinking about, which channels are, have we kind of used for optimization, and which channels there are huge gaps as well. So, having a channel dimension to understand how well we're doing with continuous optimization is kind of really important as well. The third dimension is the customer lifecycle dimension. So thinking about it, which parts of the customer lifecycle that I have at the moment am I actually applying, optimization techniques and continually learning about the best way to engage with my customers in a data-driven way. And of course, at Forrester, we have a kind of 6-stage life cycle from discover, when the customer is still kind of discovering, just heard about our brand, then they explore when they kind of finding out a little bit more detail about the products and services we have, through to the buy, where they eventually kind of purchase, and then the use, and then the kind of engagement, the ask and engagement as they get more involved with our brand and engage with the broader kind of communities. And we need to be asking ourselves, when it comes to continuous optimization, which parts of that are we actually applying optimization? And we'll discuss detail a little bit later, but the actual real opportunity is to the left of that diagram in the use, ask, and engage with existing customers and applying that in products and in services. We obviously got a lot of work to do on the right-hand side in discover, explore, and buy, because as marketers, we still certainly haven't reached the pinnacle of what we can be doing with data-driven continuous optimization there as well. So that's the third dimension, is how do we think about, when it comes to thinking about how well we're doing with continuous optimization. So let's look at the last dimension, which is ultimately taking a step back and saying, what proportion of all the customer engagements that I have are actually continually optimized, or are actually optimized in any kind of way at all. And it's quite interesting because, we've just come off a big kind of research project where we asked a lot of some big brands out there that are very sophisticated, and we asked them, what proportion of customers' engagements, even in the digital realm, are you actually optimizing? And you know what? Most of them didn't know what 100% of engagement looked like. they obviously had a good feel for the on-site engagements when customers came to their own properties, such as the website. But when it came to things like off-site engagements, blogging, social, etc., they had no idea at all. And so this is ultimately this is perhaps where we got the most amount of work in terms of understanding. If we seek to continually optimize across every single engagement, we need to know what that kind of looks like as well. And so that's the fourth dimension when we are seeking to understand how well we're doing with continuous optimization and seeking to kind of build out a strategy and a roadmap for it as well. So I mentioned that we have just we've just completed a large tranche of kind of research, and I thought I'd just give you a quick sneak peek into some of the findings. We've still got a lot of work to do on analyzing the data, but some of the findings that we've come across. So if you look at the figure in the middle, and you look at the on the left-hand side, you've got the 4 dimensions. The use of optimization techniques is the first one, proportion of channels optimized, optimization coverage across customer lifecycle, proportion of engagements optimized. Those are the 4, and you kind of score them out of 4. This is kind of what we've given as an average across all the industries that we surveyed. And if you look at for instance, optimization techniques, we scored them at 2 out of 4. Why? Well, we're doing a lot of I mentioned a bunch of optimization techniques that that are available today. But we are very kind of, for instance, heavily focused on A/B testing, which are very kind of simplistic. You present one variant and you compare it to another and see what the impact it has on a particular conversion component. And what we find, we just still really focused on that, pretty scared to deal with kind of black box techniques around MB, multivariate testing, behavioral targeting, etc. And there's also limited integration of these techniques to, for instance, sharing the segmentation across our customer analytics or even our digital analytics capabilities with these optimization techniques. They really aren't integrated in any kind of way. And the teams that run these optimization capabilities are sometimes, or a lot of the times, are separate from like the customer analytics team, the digital team, etc. So we have a lot of work to do when it comes to optimization techniques. When it comes to the proportion of channels optimized, what we find is that we are obviously, our websites have been with us much longer than, for instance, our traditional, the social, the mobile, the Internet of Things stuff, and so we are really focused on web when it comes to measurement and using optimization. And as long as social, social and mobile have been with us for a while, and apps been with us for a while, we're still really not out of the kind of, are we building out this means of communication yet? We haven't really, in mass anyway, measured or measuring customer engagement and using, which is the next phase, using that measurement to optimize. So we're very nascent when it comes to social and mobile at the moment. And another thing we found was that, when it came to channel optimization, it really, the penetration across our channels really depended on the vertical. For instance, the e-tailers and retailers amongst us are a lot better than the financial services firms or the farmers, etc. And so there was some variability there. And when it came to life cycle coverage, again, I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, that we are very unbalanced towards kind of the acquisition part of the life cycle. So who amongst us doesn't have a in terms of large enterprises anyway, who amongst us doesn't have a large multi-million-dollar media spend program to kind of acquire and optimize that spend and optimize that acquisition of a customer, off-site and published sites, et cetera, or paid search. So we're really kind of unbalanced towards that. And we've only just recently, relatively recently, started thinking, well, hang on, we're going to bring this traffic to our sites, to our own properties. We need to convert it, right? So maybe it's worth spending a little bit of that cash, of that investment, on actually converting that traffic with things like test and learn, things like behavioral targeting, etc. And so we're really unbalanced towards the the top part of the funnel or the early part of the life cycle. Depends how you like to think about it nowadays. And we got that right part of that customer life cycle, as I mentioned, which represents a huge opportunity. When it comes to the fourth dimension of proportion of engagements optimized, I already mentioned that we have there's poor visibility when it comes to even what 100% of engagement looks like. So we don't really know what proportion there is. And where I speak to an exec who does have a feel for that, generally it's in even in the retail space, we're looking at about 20 to 30%. So there's a huge swathe of engagements that we're not even measuring, never mind optimizing. And so that's kind of the state of customer optimization today. And just to kind of let the audience today know. So what I thought I would do is, in the next step, kind of just talk a little, talk about some case studies that we might that will bring things to light. So here's the first case study that is from Beamly, who are a social and TV, social network and social TV platform provider, as you might know, formerly Zbox. And what they did was, on the right-hand side, they had this tab-based interface whereby they were, kind of engaging with the customers in the app. And they thought, well, the industry, everybody's kind of using the side draw navigation on the left-hand side, which is that, if you look on the left-hand side, there's a little square box there. And we thought, well, that's kind of funky. Everybody's doing that. Google's kind of recommending it. And so why don't we do that? And so they just took this general perception and they did it. And they deployed it. Guess what? They lost 50% of their app engagement almost instantly because of that. So this is a great, I like to quote this example because it's a great kind of story as to why we should have insights, intelligent-driven optimization before we take the leap. You can't manage or you can't succeed with what you don't measure. So that's a great startup. But let's talk about some great good luck stories from, well, not good luck, but just great stories from the case studies we picked up in our recent kind of research. So is Royal Bank of Scotland, a bank in Scotland, kind of servicing mostly the UK market, have a small team of analytics people that, before they reorganized, they were delivering around, 2 kind of simple tests per month. And there was these, a team of about 2 or 3 kind of really struggling to do that. And what they did, through kind of reorganizing themselves, they turned this team into enablers of their product managers, or these journey managers. And they trained up and enabled these journey managers with their optimization tool and to run a lot of these tests themselves, obviously with the right guardrails in place. Obviously, they had to configure the system accordingly, and obviously supported by the smaller team. And suddenly, their team went from 2 or 3 to a virtual team of around 50 optimization specialists running A/B testing, multivariate testing tests across multiple channels. And so they didn't, if you think about it, they didn't purchase new technology. They stuck with their own technology. They didn't enable any kind of data capabilities. All they did was kind of reorganize. And suddenly, the value of optimization to their business almost tripled within the year. So you can kind of see that it's not necessarily, when it comes to continuous optimization and digital intelligence in general, it's not necessarily a technology thing. In fact, it's mostly an organization thing. When you, if you assess RBS, you can kind of see, well, they're still pretty average when it comes to optimizing across channels, and they've got a lot of work to do. And they realize it, and the next step is to kind of look at their mobile analytics and bring that within the whole realm of their digital analytics practice. So that's Royal Bank of Scotland. The next one is Lenovo. And what I liked about Lenovo, if you think about the cross customer lifecycle perspective, is that they were really kind of focused on acquiring traffic through your media buying and optimization programs. And all they did was say, well, hey, why don't we apply some of that thinking, some of that those skill sets to optimizing the engagements with customers as we engage with them via email or as they land on our websites. And so just by simply applying what they know to one part of the life cycle to another, to the to existing customers, they gain huge kind of return on investment from the techniques that they have at the moment, and some of the KPIs were really great. And so again, that's this is a life cycle story from applying techniques from one part of the life cycle to the other. And when you assess them, we can see they're still pretty average across the life cycle, and they've got a bit of work to do. So they need to increase the number and sophistication amount of tests, and they need to continue to build out their targeting to a greater proportion of the existing customers. So a bit of work to do, but again, hopefully an example that shows that we're not talking about being a rocket scientist here. We're talking about creating a strategy, focusing on it, and delivering early benefits. Now, the next case study is really one of my favorites. It's Shop Direct, who are really sophisticated. For me, these guys really show that continuous optimization is not just an aspiration. It's something that we can deliver today if we are focused enough on it. For them, continuous optimization is a strategic initiative supported by the executive team, and it's a way that they have consciously decided to be able to compete in the markets that they are in at the moment. And so what they do is they continually, they drive 60-plus tests per month, fairly sophisticated, from multivariate to AB/ABN testing. They have recommendations engines, which are run, they run continuously. And one of the things I found with them is that they had an interesting culture. They weren't afraid to fail. They had a great test and learn culture of failing fast and learning from that failure and feeding it back into their learning so they can kind of optimize the way that they do business with their customers. And for them, they feel that most of the visits that they have, particularly to their websites, are kind of optimized. And so they, some of the KPIs they shared and the value gained from optimization was that they gained, the ROI, the year-on-year ROI, and the investment in these kind of technologies was up 20% just by having this continuous optimization strategy. And the key conversion metrics were up as well. So really doing well. And when you assess them across the 4 dimensions of continuous optimization, they scored a 3 out of 4, which, believe me, is insanely good if you consider where we are in the in the kind of markets and the space at the moment. So their next steps is they're going to they've seen it work. They're going to continue to invest in optimization approaches, and they're now kind of looking at techniques for like real-time targeting. So not only seeking to optimize the next engagement, but to use our current understanding of customer, update that in near real time, and in near real time update the existing engagement the existing session that we have with customers. So that's kind of where they're going. They're taking it to the next level. It's a great example of that. The next case study we have is really a case study around individualization. So continue optimizing the to the individual. And so what do we mean by individualization? Well, this Wells Fargo example really is a great example. So, we as customers, as we engage with ATMs, have different reasons for engaging with that ATM, as Wells Fargo discovered, whether it's checking our balance, whether it is tracking our budget, or whether it's drawing cash, et cetera, et cetera. We all have common things that we do, and they tend to be slightly different. And what they do is they tailor the interface to the screen to the needs and behaviors of the individual. And so that's really what individualization really kind of means. And the interesting thing is that individualization really applies very well to the left-hand side of that customer lifecycle, to the engaged part of that customer lifecycle, where we are consuming existing products and services. And so this is a great example of being able to do that. And so that's my my last kind of case study. What I thought I might do is kind of tail off to the discussion with a discussion on, okay, so what do we do today to start to reach for this data-driven continuous optimization approach? Well, the first thing is we need to have a strategy around it, and we need to have a digital intelligence strategy that provides the intelligence we need to drive continuous optimization. And if you think about it, there are just three basic tiers when it comes to leveraging data understanding and applying that to action. And that is the data tier. At Forrester, we call that the data tier, the analysis tier, and the action tier. And they're not. If you look at those little sub boxes within, that's certainly not comprehensive, but they give you an idea of the capabilities that you need to kind of bring together to be able to deliver digital intelligence and continuous optimization. So if you look, for instance, at the data tier, for instance, we need a tag management capability and data layering capability. We could also include things like we need a customer profiling capability to be able to bring together the unknown, the engagements customers have with us when they are known to when, and then being able to link that back to engagements as to when they are identified, those kind of things. And then when you look at the analysis tier, which is kind of where my sweet spot is in terms of stuff I kind of day-to-day occupy me, there is a ton of analytical capabilities or ways of understanding our customer that we need to think about, such as web analytics, which is kind of where this whole digital analytics comes from, really. It's where it originates from and ultimately evolved into digital intelligence. You got your interaction analytics, which is understanding individual customers, the sessions that that they engage, exactly how they engage with us, the heat mappings. Of course, you got the mobile analytics, the app analytics, things like APM or performance monitoring, where we are trying to understand the impact of the performance of the system on the customer engagement, etc. So there's a bunch of techniques within the analytics tier that kind of really drives it. And ultimately, to make it intelligent, we need to act upon those insights through action-based systems such as test and learn, behavioral targeting, recommendations, etc. that I covered earlier. So the first takeaway for today is to have a strategy, a digital intelligence strategy, to deliver continuous optimization. And that means, A, you consciously, as an organization, need to deliver it, and B, have a framework to kind of think about it. And I propose to you today that the digital intelligence kind of capability or technology stack is a way to kind of get started. So the next takeaway is to really kind of think about what is possible when it comes to engaging with customers across channel, because cross-channel is really important today, because our empowered customer today engages with us whenever, however they want to, whatever, with multiple kind of devices. So we need to think about how we can, A, understand our customers with these kind of recognition keys that we have, and B, how we can then track them. And what do we mean by recognition keys? We mean a key or identity key that kind of can track me as I engage within a system or within a session or across sessions or even across channels. So let's take a look at this graph in front of us at the moment. So if you take, for instance, your IP address, right? So it might be dynamically allocated. So is it very useful to track, to keep, persist that current session with me? Yes, of course it is. Is it useful when I revisit the site? No, it's not, because it's probably dynamically allocated. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but it's kind of hit and miss. So that's probably the least useful identity key that we can use. On the top right-hand side, you have things like social identity, which not only gives us a lot of understanding of individuals, of who we are, but what our propensities are, what we like, what we want. It gives us a rich kind of swathe of information about this. So the key thing here is if you are thinking about starting this journey of using understanding to to better engage with our customers through continuous optimization, we need to think about the keys that we have to track these customers. So the first thing you do is you go back and you kind of audit your capabilities around this, plot this on this graph, and that will give you a really good understanding on what digital intelligence capabilities and continuous optimization capabilities you have, and will inform the next steps. So the next slide kind of takes us to that. So for instance, if you think about that kind of IP address, right? So I come in from the West Coast and I hit your website. You can more or less identify me to that, and you have this kind of broad kind of behavioral segment that I'm a West Coast surfer. I don't know, depends on what kind of website it is, and you can then change the way that that site kind of behaves. Or if I come in from Germany, you can change the site to German, German language, etc. So that's what we mean by the bottom left-hand side, broad behavioral segments restricted to individual channels. As you improve your interaction keys and through to things like cookies, etc., you can then do more sophisticated kind of targeting of returning visitors. You can understand what the behaviors were before that current session and during that current session, and to apply it and to apply segmentation. It's that top right-hand side that is really kind of very interesting, actually, and it kind of brings in an ability to deliver individualization, as kind of Cory mentioned, as we talked about a little bit earlier in this discussion as well. And what, if you have these keys that can track across multiple channels and can give us at the same time really good understanding of our customer, you can then have these persistent one-to-one conversations across multiple channels that are very powerful. And you can also use that to then continually optimize the engagement with that person, because you have such rich information on not only who they are and what they like, but how they react to the site, to that engagement, and continually optimize. And so those are some kind of takeaways I'd like to kind of leave with you as you hopefully strive towards this kind of vision of continuous optimization, and to use that for competitive advantage, as King Henry VIII, I guess the customers should have done. But with that, I think, Cory, we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. I believe you're going to invigilate and kind of manage some of that.
Yes, you've got it. Thank you very much, James. So I have a couple questions that have come in, a couple questions of my own based on your content, but maybe we'll get one that came in while you were talking, James, about the Beamly example. If you could just elaborate a little bit further about what caused the drop in engagement. Was it about the fact that they changed the appearance or their structure of the app, or just that it was less familiar? What did they attribute to their personalization fail?
Yeah, so I mean, it was just really their customers were very familiar with the app. So they were just, that's the way that they engage. So it was a bit of a familiarity thing. So, the chances are, although I'm guessing they didn't kind of wait that long, that after a while the customer would have got more familiar with the way that the app kind of works. So it was the fact that the customer was engaging with the app in a certain way, and you are changing the fundamental way that you are interacting, that was perhaps, although never proven to be the main kind of area. I mean, there's certainly lots of hypothesizing, etc. But that would have been it. Would have been somewhere around that.
Sure thing. But had they done some research about that and thought about it more, they might have prevented the mistake.
Yeah. Exactly. Or exactly. If they had kind of iteratively failed, so applied it to certain smaller segments, etc., they would have probably not only find out that it was going to fail, but found out a more optimal way of doing it than they had before, so improving on it as well. So which they are applying those techniques now, so thank goodness.
So James, when in your research, it sounds like it's ongoing. What are the most common hurdles or obstacles that companies run into when trying to get a grip on their own digital intelligence?
I love this question because, you kind of immediately think, oh, it's kind of managing big data, bringing it all together, segmenting your customers, understanding the science behind it, etc. Actually, it's none of that. The biggest hurdle is actually just consciously, as an organization, deciding, you know what, we need to leverage our customer understanding to better engage with us. We need to use it as a strategy. It needs to be a strategic level initiative. So the first thing is just education, really. To be fair on us as human beings, the big data evolution or revolution when it comes to customer insights is only just, relatively soon jumped on us. And so we're just kind of adjusting. And, from an executive level downwards is just a general kind of lack, or there has been a general lack of understanding of the power of these kind of capabilities. But, and then some of the quick wins is just really organization, right? So we just need to be organized around it. And so as the RBS example, what they did was they just kind of changed the organization slightly to gain big things. So those are the common obstacles are really the way that we organize and the fact that we don't have a strategy or culture around it. Those are the biggest roadblocks or obstacles.
Fair enough. Maybe you can talk a little bit too about the implications. You've mentioned technology in this, but what are some of the new demands that marketers are putting on their technology partners to get better at digital intelligence and continuous optimization?
That's interesting. So, if you look at the digital technology stack, whether you are an analytics vendor, whether you are kind of a data provider, whether you are an action provider, so in other words, you provide behavioral targeting or whatever as a vendor, all the whoever you happen to be engaging with in this space, the customers all want you to help them understand their customers. So, for instance, an A/B testing, enterprise A/B testing solution needs to be driven off a customer profile somewhere or customer understanding. It needs to be delivering that, but it also needs to be kind of feeding off the enterprise view of that as well. So those are the kind of the big demands. Also, these technology partners are being kind of pushed to really understand and get involved with the businesses of their customers, to really understand the retail vertical or the banking vertical, et cetera, as well. So it's technology. If you're a technology vendor at the moment, you've got your work cut out for you. But if you succeed, there's a lot of hay to be made.
Sure. And given that there are what seems to be an ever-increasing number of technology vendors out there, what are the types of questions that marketers should be asking of their partners in technology as they go through this process?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is, understanding what level of maturity that they are at the moment, because you see there's a lot of shelfware at the moment with some very sophisticated capabilities that are just kind of lying around. So, worst case scenario, you will have a fairly sophisticated piece of analytics tool that you're just not using because nobody really understands it, or probably in the most case scenario is you're not using 90% of a kind of behavioral targeting capability that you do have. And so, the marketers should be asking their tech partners how they are going to, what their maturity curve looks like. So, where they're going to start now in terms of the use of the tool, and then how they're going to get them to leverage to generate more and more value out of that investment. Because too often you kind of see, firms investing more and more in technology, thinking in newer technology or more features and functions, but they're not actually leveraging their existing features and functions properly just yet. But you'd be surprised how much untapped value that there is kind of lying around out there. And you should be challenging your tech partner to leverage the investment, to gain more value out of your existing investment.
Great. James, have you found through the research that there's a particular role within the organization that's well suited to being that sort of change management sponsor for this type of initiative that's typically fairly ongoing and widespread?
Yeah, I mean, and well, yes and no. So, generally speaking, firms have not really adopted this. Well, they have and they haven't. So, we've adopted the customer experience officer, right? We've all heard of that, or somebody who's focusing on optimization or conversion funnel optimization. These people kind of exist. But at the kind of broader level, where we've kind of said, we want to use digital intelligence or digital understanding of customer to better compete, and we need to apply that in a uniform way across everything that we, all our kind of interaction points. There's very few kind of roles kind of suited. If you look at, for instance, but there are hints. So, for instance, in the retail world, you get the kind of growth of the optimization teams, or the travel and leisure, the growth of the optimization teams who are leveraging analytics to drive better offers, to drive acquisition, to drive their products and services as well, and that's kind of sitting with them. And they are the disruptors, so to speak. They need to work a lot with, perhaps with the IT teams or their digital teams who have the change management or program management capabilities to apply. But generally, those optimization teams are kind of exist within. Within things like, retail banking, et cetera, you quite often have, the proponents of these approaches sit within, say, obviously within the digital, business side of the business, and, typically within a kind of marketing as well. And so they really, at the moment, are not well suited to the kind of the enterprise-wide initiatives that we're talking about today. And so, they are making headways, but they have limited kind of remit and ability to apply it at the enterprise level. Hopefully that answers some of the question anyway.
I have a question here from the one of the attendees, and I would imagine you get this a lot, and there's a lot to unpack. But do you find that there's some guidelines around managing the point when the customer knows too much about them? The kind of so-called creepy factor obviously comes to mind when you're talking about digital intelligence and tracking, et cetera. So how do you think about that and approach that idea?
You know what, for me, if you are delivering value, enough value, then the customer, then that question barely kind of comes up. It's only when you have these kind of programs, these tracking programs that are not, does not put the customer at the heart of, what you're trying to do. It does not look at seeking to delight that customer at every possible moment. It's when you have these programs that are just seeking to, it feels, any relationship, any partnership where there's, one partner is seeking to gain more than the other kind of always fails. And the customer brand partnership is exactly the same. It's no different from anything else. And where the brand or the company is seeking just to selfishly leverage data and not apply it in a way that adds value, then it kind of fails. So I kind of take it from that perspective. Obviously, it's a big discussion around privacy, and we need to kind of take that into mind. There's kind of legislation, depending which parts of the world, we need to kind of be thinking about that as well. And choosing your technology and your services partners to help you do that is really, really important. But if you go in with the view, two things. One is we want to add value to that relationship. That's why we are collecting this information about you. And actually what we want to do is we're not really interested in identifying you and what your social security number is. All we want to do is really recognize your needs so we can support, so we can better service you. If you go in with those philosophies, then those kind of discussions become less and less. That's the only thing I do know. Hopefully that helps.
Great. That's very helpful. So I want to give everyone on the phone some time to make it probably to their next meeting. So just maybe one more question, James, before we wrap up here. What are some of the really specific measurable achievements that you've seen companies attribute to an intelligent marketing effort?
Well, for me, it's the optimization program. So the targeting, behavioral targeting, the test and learn programs that really are at the heart of showing measurable results, because ultimately they are near the end of the value chain of why we collect information about our customers, why we churn it and analyze it to understand them. And ultimately it's those optimization techniques and the uplift in conversion metrics that show that are really close to really showing the value of these techniques. That's why I always kind of advise any firm that's starting out in this digital intelligence kind of roadmap is to just do a simple A/B test, because it'll show you what the value of customer understanding can provide to the business and to the customers. So that's those measurable. Those are some of the measurable achievements. Of course, you get some fairly sophisticated, especially in the insurance and life insurance industry, kind of use cases where they've shown improvement in lifetime value, which through sophisticated modeling, etc. But for me, the most obvious are through those optimization, not simple, but those simpler optimization programs show that.
Excellent. Well, with that, James, I'm sure you need a sip of water. You've impressed all of us with the breadth of information you brought here, so thank you very much for the time. Elise, I think I'll hand it back to you for just a few wrap-up items and reiterate my thanks to everyone for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Cory, and thank you, James, for answering all those questions and providing that insight. And also, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Make sure to look for an email with a link to watch the webcast on demand. And again, this presentation will be made available. This concludes our webcast, The House That Data Built, Use Digital Intelligence to Drive Individualization, brought to you by BlueConic. Thank you very much for attending, and have a great day.